talked about. And this really wonderful information that Jo is going to tell us about what she's been doing with her postcards. So I think Fiona is admitting people who are in the lobby. So may I start, please, by saying a very warm welcome from ABPN to this webinar. My name is Jean Davis, and I'm really pleased to be the chair of ABPN. Now, we have our president, Professor Bernie Carter, on the call. Very pleased that she's here. Do you want to say anything, Bernie, at all?
Just welcome to everybody, and it's lovely to, these are such a fantastic source of information. I learn tons from sitting in on these webinars, so it's always a delight to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Fiona, do you want to just say hello, because you're the main organizer of these very wonderful webinars?
Welcome everybody to today's webinar. I've known Jo for a wee while.
Okay, so now we'll go to our guest of honor, to Jo. Jo, would you like to introduce yourself, and Linda, who's sitting with you, and when you're ready, please start your session. Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Jo Dalton, and I'm just going to turn it slightly so you can see my friend Lynn here. And it's Lynn's laptop, which is why it says Linda Taylor on there. But actually, I've just come round to her house because she's better at IT than I am, and I'm completely useless, and her laptop works. So that's why we're doing this instead. So yeah, that's Lynn. I'm Jo. And I used to be a paediatric diabetes nurse for many years, which is where I first met Fiona. And then I ended up being an adult diabetes nurse because I'm adult and paediatric trained. And I worked in a newly formed young people's diabetes service in Poole in Dorset. Mm-hmm. So, and we had great fun doing all sorts of things. And we came up with an idea for an engagement tool because young adults sometimes struggle to want to come to clinic to see us. So we go out and see them in various places, in colleges and in schools and so on. But we found a way to do an engagement thing, which includes these, what we call inspirational postcards. So I just want to talk to you a little bit about those. And there's a tiny little video as well that you can watch. And I don't know if you can see my first slide yet. Hang on, let's see if Lynn can make it turn up. Haha, there we go.
There we are. Well done.
So, right, let's make it, you have to make it big. Here we go. Right, how do we make that go away? Haha, right, so can you all see that? I'm guessing you can.
Yes.
Yeah. Because now you've all vanished from my screen. I can't see you nod your heads even. Okay, so I wrote an article about this particular piece of work that we did, and I called it From Clinic with Love. And we then put a subtitle, which is The Use of Inspirational Postcards Improves Engagement with Young People's Diabetes Clinics. So that's the article. And it was in a journal called Diabetes Care for Children and Young People in 2021. And I'm hoping that somewhere in here is the link to it, so you can, oh, there it is. It's right in front of me. See, I can, if I look at my own slide, I can find it, can't I? So that's where you would find it if you want to. And it'll explain it more clearly than I'm doing now. I'll move to the next one. How do I do that? Aha, here we go. Right, hang on. I've written myself notes, otherwise I'll forget and I'll lose my train of thought. So one of the things about young people's diabetes services in diabetes, and I guess in any other long-term condition, is we work with 15 to 25-year-olds or thereabouts. Sometimes they're a bit younger and they join earlier, and sometimes they leave sooner because they're ready to move to adult services. And we have strong links in Poole with the paediatric service, which is used to be based within the same hospital, and the adult service in the diabetes centre that we worked in. And one of our big issues is making sure that we stay engaged with our young adults, because it's very easy to sort of fall through the cracks. And in our diabetes service, if you weren't able to come to clinic for once or twice, it wasn't 2 strikes and you're out and then you just got sent back to your GP. We'd actually keep in contact with you, and we wouldn't chase you exactly, but we'd make sure that we were able to keep contact. So one of the things that we did was make sure every time we saw you that we had your most up-to-date contact details, and that was really useful. And we'd engage with Instagram, and we had newsletters, and we had obviously a phone number for the clinic and for me as the diabetes nurse. But we wanted people to feel welcome. So that was why this slide is on here. There's a big thing about being non-judgmental, and there's a huge amount of work going on, certainly this year, about diabetes and stigma associated with, in particular with type 2 diabetes. But now that we've got an awful lot more technology helping people manage their type 1 diabetes, it's as though in some ways, because the technology helps us a lot, that somehow your diabetes is easier to manage. And to be honest, it isn't. It's still pants. And I've got type 1, I've had it nearly 40 years. And one of the things that we have done in clinic for a long, long time now is talk to people about what's happening in their life. And then we talk about their diabetes, but it's not the first thing we want to know about. Let me move to the next slide, otherwise I'm talking too much. Okay, so in 2018, I got to go on a course at Diabetes UK, and I went to Leicester, and they're a really good team in Leicester. And there were lots and lots of diabetes nurses and dietitians and people, not doctors on this particular one, but other healthcare professionals in diabetes. And you had to come with an idea about what you wanted to do to improve services in your area. And I had an idea, and I took it with me. But on the first day of that sort of 2-day study day thing, we all had to pick a postcard. And I like Winnie the Pooh, and my husband is in the army, or he was at the time, he's retired now. So I picked this Winnie the Pooh postcard, and we had to write ourselves a note to self on the postcard that we've chosen. There were like hundreds of ones to choose from. So I picked this one up, and I put on mine something about wanting to maybe investigate if having a note to self idea like this would work for engagement in clinic. Because the thing about this postcard was you wrote it to yourself, and then the people who were running the study day posted it to you 2 weeks later, so that when the novelty of, you know, coming off to this study day or coming out of clinic had worn off a little bit, and you were back at home and you were doing all the stuff that you had to do, and you thought, oh, do you know what, I really can't be bothered doing that again, particularly with long-term conditions, the postcard would arrive that you'd written that said, oh, maybe that's a nudge to help you carry on doing the thing that you wanted to do. So I thought, I like this idea. Rather than me try to do my original good idea for service improvement, I'd actually nick this idea, but I'd try and revamp it a little bit to make it diabetes specific. So that's what we chose to do. So let me see, I haven't actually said any of the things that are written underneath this slide, but I'll move to the next slide because I'm obviously on a roll here, aren't I? So I like the idea. I thought it would be simple and inexpensive. So I went to, I think it was somewhere like Waterstones, and they had boxes of postcards that cost a fortune, but I bought 100 Ladybird book covers, all different designs. But I remember Ladybird books from being a kid. My mum was a librarian, so every year for birthday and Christmas, we always got a Ladybird book because they were nice. And the modern Ladybird books, I really like those too, because they're very tongue-in-cheek and a little bit sort of not rude, but they're cheeky, which is good, and they use the old-fashioned pictures. But for our young adults, they don't remember Ladybird books in the way that people who are my age and a little bit older and a little bit younger remember. So they were all right, and I used them, and I did a pilot project using those. But one of the things that our young people did, which was really great, was they were very involved in changing this idea and making it something that was much more useful for the age group we're talking about. They helped us with things like the wording, the pictures, the formatting, and so on. So over a period of 2 or 3 months, we changed the designs when it worked out that the Ladybird postcards weren't hitting the spot for them. So let me move to the next one. Here we go. This is 4 of our postcards. Let me show you what the others look like. Hang on a second, here we go. I just want to make sure that my bit of paper matches what's in the slide in front of me. We wanted different colours, and we wanted different inspirational quotes. So they came from all sorts of sources, and a couple of other people who were on the Tomorrow's Leaders programme with me, I got them to come up with some ideas about the sorts of things to put on these postcards as well. And then when I got the postcards made, I took them back to a follow-up study day and so I said, right, does anybody else want to have a go with these in your work area? These are the audit forms, and then let me know how they go. And only a few of the people who were on the course with me were paediatric diabetes nurses. Most people were either paediatric dietitian, adult dietitians or adult diabetes nurses. And I don't honestly think it matters what age the people are who've got the long-term condition. It's the fact that you've got to do something to yourself every day in a relentless 24/7 just to stay healthy. And this is why we picked different designs. Let me show you the next 4. They're nice, aren't they? That yellow one that says positive mind, positive heart, positive life is bright yellow. It doesn't look bright yellow on this slide, but it really is bright yellow. I wanted the postcards to be cheerful, and I wanted a different selection of colours and phrases on there so that people could pick the postcard that meant the most to them on the day that they came to clinic. And what we would do, once they'd come into clinic and they'd see the consultant, and then they'd have a discussion. I mean, I'd say hello to them to begin with, and we'd do the HbA1c and all that sort of technical stuff that you do at the start of greeting someone in clinic. Then they'd go and see the doctor, and then when they'd come out of seeing the doctor, then we'd do this postcard bit. And some people didn't want to fill in a postcard at all. They weren't interested, wasn't their thing, they weren't in the right mood, and it was like, no, it's all right, Joe, don't need to, thanks, but no. And other people said, yeah, go on, I'll have a go. So we put hello on the postcard, we put the date, and we'd put something cheerful at the beginning, like it was really nice to see you in clinic today, love your new hair colour, congratulations on passing your driving test, whatever it was that we'd been talking about that was a good and positive thing. And then we went to the note to self bit, which was 1 or 2 things that they thought they wanted to improve or sort of be more committed to do looking after their own diabetes at home, a couple of weeks after they finished clinic, and then we'd see them again 2 or 3 months later. Lots of people don't receive cheerful post these days. Everything is online, so it's nice if you get something in the post addressed to you. And what we would also do, I'll show you this now, instead of putting a sticker on the postcard, the back of the postcard is completely blank. There's no sort of publicity, there's not the name of the hospital or anything like that on it. So we would put one of these, they would pick a smiley face to put where a stamp would go if it was a real postcard and you were posting it. And then I'd put the postcard in an envelope so that when it got posted to their house, I put it then through the hospital post system because it was a note to a person with diabetes, a patient of ours. When it arrived at their house, mum, dad, brother, sister, nobody could read what was written on the postcard because very often it was something very private and personal. and you wouldn't want your little brother or sister to read, or to know that you'd written something personal on there that was a note for you from yourself. So it was important to keep it private. And I wanted people to be kind to themselves as well, which I think is really important. Let me move to the number 9 slide. Okay. We posted them in 1 or 2 weeks' time. Did it help them as a nudge to help themselves? That basically we audited it, and the top and bottom of it was, yes, it did help. And what I'd said to people was, when you get your postcard, have a read of it and think, oh yeah, you put that. And some people didn't want to even write their own postcard, so I would write it, but they'd tell me what to put. So it was sort of their words, but perhaps they weren't happy about writing it, so I'd do it. And I said, put the postcard somewhere where you're going to see it every day. And you can either put it with the colourful side, so you see that, or you can put it sort of back to front so that it's their written note that they see. And I didn't mind if the postcard was a sort of nudge in the right direction. So they thought, oh yeah, I'm going to do whatever it was. I don't know, more blood glucoses, or remember to take all your insulin, or remember to change your sensor, or something diabetes related. Or if they looked at the postcard and thought, oh, flipping heck, I'm going back to see that nurse in a month, 6 weeks' time, I better start doing the thing that I wrote on the postcard. Now, I don't mind what worked, so long as it worked a little bit. And when we did our audit, we found that quite a lot of it worked really quite positively. So these are the audit results. Let me keep going. We had an audit form, which I don't think is on one of the slides. Hang on, let me just check. No, it isn't, but don't worry, because audit forms are fairly boring. But there were 5 questions for healthcare professionals who were involved in using these postcards in the sort of audit phase, and then 5 questions for young people with diabetes or older people with diabetes who were involved in using them at their clinic. And what we found was that people enjoyed the fact that we engaged with them outside of clinic, that it was obvious that we wanted them to come back again. It was nice that they got a nice piece of post. They were quite happy with the selection of postcards, and they would recommend it to somebody else. Let me just move on to the next one. Interestingly, this was our 10th postcard, the one that says, I believe in myself. And when I was going through the audit stuff with Lynn, who was helping me throughout all of this, because she's really good at the sort of graphic side of things, and fonts and colours and all the things that you have to think about when you're trying to design something. I looked at this postcard and I thought, would I have picked this postcard myself, knowing that I'm a person with type 1 as well, and I, try really quite hard to look after my diabetes. And I thought, actually, I wouldn't, to be honest. It wouldn't be the postcard that I'd pick. One of my favourite ones is the little cardboard figure sitting on the curb looking a bit sad, because a lot of people picked that one, actually, to start with. And then what we found was that when people came back to clinic and they felt a little bit more positive, or something had changed a little bit about their diabetes in a more positive way, that they would then pick a different postcard and do another note to self, and then we post it again in a couple of weeks' time. One of the other things we did when people went to university is that we do 2 postcards, so that I'd post one in a couple of weeks' time, and then if I'd already got their address of where they were going to be living at university, then come October time, when they'd been at uni for about a month, 5-6 weeks maybe, they'd get another postcard. And it was about making sure that we stayed engaged with people, so they knew that the door is always open and they can come back, even if they've not come to clinic for ages, for whatever reason, that we'd still want them to come back to see us. And I think that's really important, because it's very easy with any long-term condition to fall through the cracks. And I think that's a vital thing. Some of our paediatric team in Poole use them with parents as well as their older paediatric patients. And some of our adult diabetes nurses use them as well. And they found that they were quite helpful, even, well, I was going to say even with older people, but actually any age. And it's this idea that you know what you want to do, you know what you're supposed to be doing, but sometimes it's just too hard to keep doing it. Let me move to the next slide. I think I'm probably going a bit too quickly now, but that gives us lots of time for questions, which is a good thing. Now, because we found that nobody picked this postcard, I thought about trying to make a new postcard, and because it was the run up to Easter, this is what we picked. There we go. And that's the sort of thing that I would say to somebody, come on, crack on. So that's what our last design was. And lots of people used the postcard idea, not just in our service, but in other services that did the audit with us, for things like mental health issues. And some of these, some of the comments on this one was really nice. So when I look at the postcard, it reminds me there's someone there to help. And it was nice to receive something that was positive. And I think that's good for all of us. One of the other things that was quite nice was sometimes people would come to clinic and they'd say, look, my friend's mum has just been diagnosed with something. Can I take a spare one of these? Or do you mind if I take one of these and one of those, because this friend's got something going on and I think she'd really like this one, and this other friend's mum has got. So they were used like that as well. So people took spare ones away with them. And our matron at the time, really nice guy called Jeffrey Walker, he had a friend who used to be a hospital chaplain, and she'd been diagnosed with a cancer that had become she got to the end of her treatable program, and she was now in the sort of hospice bit of our hospital, and she knew that she didn't have very much longer to live. And Jeffrey was talking to her about these postcards, and she said, could I have some, please? And what she did was she wrote postcards to her relatives, because she thought it was important to leave them with a message so that they could have that postcard after she died. And one of the things that she had said was that because she was a hospital chaplain, I think people kind of hope that, you know, God's going to look after you all the time. And it felt really unfair that God had let this happen to their aunt, their sister, whatever the relative was associated with this particular hospital chaplain. And she didn't want them to feel that. So she used the selection of postcards, and she picked the right one for each of the relatives that she wanted to write a postcard to. And it worked really well. She was really quite pleased about it, and nice that she could leave something for them after she'd gone. And that, I thought that was really quite sweet. Positive comments. Here we go. Let me move on to the next one. Taking the idea further. So the packs of 10 cards, and I can basically, they all fit in one little envelope. But if anybody wants me to send them a pack of cards, they look like that, and that's the back of them. So there's no publicity on them at all. But if you send a stamped addressed envelope, and it needs to be a large letter stamp, by the way, to Fiona or to ABPN, then they can post the envelopes to me, and then basically I'll send you a packet of these postcards, because we've got quite a lot left, and so you can all have a set. I'm trying to wake up. There we go. I'm back to the beginning again. Basically, you get a packet of 10. Because what you might be able to do is use a similar idea in your own clinic. And even if you've got particularly arty, gifted children, young people, they might come up with ideas for artwork themselves. We had one of our paediatric diabetes nurses, her older sister ran a design and print company. So basically, we came up with 10 designs in our clinic, me and the other people in the Young People's Diabetes Service. And then the diabetes nurse's sister, who ran this design and print company, she came up with 10 designs. And basically, the final 10 that we picked were 5 of hers and 5 of ours. And it was really nice to have our young people look at all of the designs and help us see what was good and what needed changing and so on in all of them. So they were highly involved in creating the 10 postcards that we went with. Apart from that one, like I say, that says, I believe in myself. And we all thought somebody would pick it. And in the end, nobody did. But anyway, so we've shared the idea with lots of different people. And I saw Fiona at something last year, and I had these postcards with me and the article and gave it out to 2 or 3 nurses who were there with us at the time. And so Fiona said, would I like to talk about it on a webinar? Well, I've never done a webinar before, so I'm hoping that this isn't completely jumbled and it makes sense to people. So let me keep going. And there we go. This slide, if ever I've done presentations in diabetes care for paediatrics or in adult young people services, I use this cartoon, and I can't remember where I got it from, but it was a really neat idea. So our teams and services may not be able to pull you up, but we can still think of ways to not let you fall. And I think that's really important. Now, what I need to do is go back to the first slide, because that's the one that's got the link to the little piece of film. Hang on a second, because Lynn is doing the technicals. Oh, there you go. See, I never thought of that. Hey, here we go. Right. So if I go to,
I don't know if it'll play, but
I don't know if it'll, right, let's try. We're going to try this. If it works, it's only 2 or 3 minutes and hopefully it'll make sense. Let's see. Oh, hang on. Skip verification.
Can you see this?
Can you see what's
No.
on our screen yet?
No, let
You
me-
may not be able to.
Let me.
Hang on. I'm gonna turn it towards Lynn, and then she can fiddle with it. Right. Hang on a second. Sorry.
We're patient people, don't worry. Sometimes you have to go onto YouTube itself, you know.
Let's turn the light on. Hang on. Let's make it louder.
Lovely pictures, Joe. We can't hear, and it may be you have to adjust the sound settings in
Hang
your
on,
computer.
Let's try it. Right. What we might have to do is start again. Hang on a second. I've got my mouth frozen open.
It
Sorry.
would stop there, wouldn't it?
Of course it would. Yeah, yeah.
We'll
Yeah.
put a link to it in the chat, and then they can watch it. That's what.
Is
we'll
that
do.
better?
Yeah.
Okay, right. Let's do that, because
If
Please
you
don't
click
feel
on the share
rushed.
button,
There's
there's an
plenty
include
of
sound
time.
button.
just give us a.
Just
It doesn't last for very long, that little
No.
piece of YouTubiness.
Laura Snow, were you coming in? Did you have some advice?
Yeah, if you click on the share button, there's an include sound toggle right at the top. If you need to press that for us to be able to hear the sound, I think.
Ah, oh, let's try it now. Thank you, love.
You've learned something
All
now.
right.
You
I
see,
hope it works.
all day. Oh, look at that with my mouth open. Nothing changes, does it?
Masling. I'm a consultant physician at Poole Hospital.
Is that
Yeah,
working?
that's it.
The aim of this film is to explain about our inspirational postcards scheme. This was something set up by my colleague Joe Dalton, who's one of our diabetes nurse specialists. And it's something that we feel that could be used not just in diabetes, but in lots of other healthcare settings, particularly for patients with long-term conditions, but perhaps other healthcare settings where you would like to remind a patient that they need to do something, perhaps after discharge or after you've seen them in the outpatient clinic. So Joe, if you could explain to us how the scheme works.
What we've got is 10 inspirational postcards, and you'll be able to see them close up at the end of the film. And at Clinic, we're talking to people about positive self-cares, and we want young people to maintain those self-cares when they get home. And what we found was that after the first couple of weeks, the novelty can wear off. And so what we've asked is for people to write themselves a note to self using one of these inspirational postcards. So at the end of Clinic, they can choose a postcard to write to themselves. And what we're saying is, put hello and whatever your first name is at the top and put today's date. What I also do is put a smiley face sticker in the corner where the stamp would have gone if you were going to post a postcard normally. What we then do is we think of a positive comment that the young person or I will write on their postcard if they're not terribly good at handwriting. We then focus on 1, 2 at the most positive self-steps that they want to remind themselves to do in a couple of weeks' time when we post the postcard to them. And they need to be quite smart goals, not something really vague like sort out my diabetes, something that's quite specific and can be helpful. When we've got our 1 or 2 notes to self, we then finish off with another cheerful or hopeful comment, and then both myself and the patient will sign the card, and it's a bit like a sort of homeschool agreement that you might get with a child at school and parents and school staff. What I then do is I put the card into an envelope so that nobody at home can read what the young person's written on their postcard, because it might be something quite personal, and I'm then going to post it to their home address in 1 to 2 weeks. And it's really nice for the young person to receive a cheerful piece of post, and it helps to remind them to do that positive self-care.
And Joe, we found this to be very effective with our patients. We have audited it and made an evaluation of it and found it very effective for our patients. What do our patients particularly like about it?
What they like in particular is that they've received something from us. And a really, really lovely comment was that folk found that it was nice to know that we were thinking about them even when they weren't in our clinic. And because we asked them to put the postcard somewhere where they'll see it every day, it's a sort of aide-memoire to do the thing that they know they probably should be doing in terms of diabetes self-cares, and that's really positive. When they come back to clinic in a month or 2 months' time, if things have gone really well, what they may then do is pick a different postcard and write themselves a new note that we then post out. So some of our young people have got 2 or 3 of these postcards, and they've worked really, really well.
So we feel this is something that we could do in any healthcare setting. We would advise you just to give it a go, and hopefully you've seen from today's film a framework of how you could use it. Good luck.
There you go. Does it make sense?
Oh, that's really great. Thank you. And
Right.
thank you to Laura and Lynn for the help in getting that message well and truly across to us. Thank you. So please carry on now, Joe.
Well, are there any questions now then? Does it sound like an idea that you can use in your own clinic if you got access to some of these postcards, or even if you got your clinic participants to help you design some? Because
Yeah,
one of the
great
things I
idea.
did when if I do a talk at a conference and you get paid for it, because I generally did stuff in my own time anyway, and you always have to fund yourself to go to conferences and stuff, don't you, these days? But we used to have in our service a little pot of money which was from doing talks at conferences and stuff, because we set up and had quite a good young people's diabetes service, so various of us did talks and things. And if you were paid from a drug company fund or a whatever network, whatever, then it went into that pot of money. So to get the postcards printed came from that pot of money that we'd already generated doing talks about the service development and so on that we'd done in the first 2 or 3 years of setting up this new young people's diabetes service. And it was only when we'd done the pilot with these new designs, because I funded the pilot with the Ladybird postcards. That was I just funded that because I thought, well, it was my idea. I'll buy the postcards, and then we did the audit. And sending stuff out to people, because it was hospital post, it just went in hospital post anyway. So that I didn't have to buy all those stamps. But we had a way of funding the beginnings of creating and then using the inspirational postcards, those new designs. And then when it worked really well, then I went to our hospital charity and said, can we have some more postcards, please? And would you like to help us fund them? So they said, oh, all right then. So they spent some money to have loads more postcards created, again, using those designs so that other units within Poole Hospital could use it. And then COVID did its thing and the whole world just closed down and everybody worked from home when they could. And it ended up being, yeah, we've got some spare postcards.
Thank you.
Talking to people about the idea, and you can have some.
Yes, thank you, Joe. Well, I'm sure we're taking you up on that offer. Lee is waiting to come in, so please do so, Lee, and then Joanne afterwards.
It's lovely listening to you, Joe, and thank you so much. This webinar was actually sent to me by a colleague who said, oh, Lee, I think you might be interested in this. And obviously I'm a paediatric diabetes nurse as well, as is Joe. Hi, Joe. I will just say hello whilst you're there. I think if I think back over my time in the team, we've always tried lots of things to engage our young people and their families. You know, we don't want clinic in particular to be a negative experience. I'm very much of the, you know, before we even do anything else, what have you done at the weekend? Where have you been on holiday? Diabetes is almost secondary in clinic. Yeah, you'll come, you have your HbA1 and that, but I don't want to know about that. I want to know how you are, but it's what message do they go out with, and with the best will in the world, and I'm not talking ill of our medical colleagues, they think very differently to us touchy-feely paediatric nurses. So it is something that we've flirted with in different ways over the time. One of the things that we do now is for our patients that are on pumps, when they achieve 100% daytime in range, we've got little unicorns that we send out to them. So they'll send us a message and say, I've had my unicorn day. So we'll send them a unicorn. And it's those little incentives that keep them coming back. But where I see this fitting in with us, and I always go back from these things with loads of ideas. We're very, very lucky to have 2 youth workers in our team, and I foresee a role with them of devising these postcards, or even, you know, even some of the young people writing little inspirational messages to each other, because they shouldn't have, but we know that they have. We've got a little WhatsApp group and they help each other along. So the young people will say, oh, I've had 100% day today. Oh, well, I've only had 65. What am I doing wrong? And they're really good at that peer support. So I think I think it's great, Joe. I know, you know, I'm waffling a little bit, but I get really enthused by stuff like this. And it's good that for me, that the whole, that diabetes and all long-term conditions, and I do see this, you know, going over to other teams as well, that we don't forget that there's a young person at the end of all of this, isn't there? You know, and I think that's the important message. So thank you so much. It's great, and yeah, they'll hate me in the office tomorrow because I'll go in with a big pack of crayons and say, right, come on, we're doing it.
one of the really useful things, which is in paediatric services, an awful lot of the talking that you do is with the parents, particularly the younger the child, the more it's the parents' responsibility. And they take on a huge burden of all the diabetes care. And because I've moved out of a paediatric service into a young adult service, and it is sort of 14, 15 to 25-year-olds, I think it's probably the busiest 10 years of your life, because, I mean, apart from all the growth and stuff that you do, but you're sitting your exams, you're passing your driving test, you're forming relationships, you may be going to university, apprenticeships, there's stuff to do with banking and finances and a career and making babies, getting involved in relationships and consent and all that stuff. And that's just stuff in life. And then there's diabetes on top. And you think, I'm not surprised people get fed up. I mean, really, because I get fed up myself, to be honest, because it's, excuse my French, but it's a complete ball ache some days. And you just think, oh, really? My sensor died on my way to Lynn's house. I live near Dorchester and she's here in Poole. And it started alarming in my pocket, and I'm trying to fish my pump out of my pocket to work out why it's alerting. And I'm thinking, oh, marvellous. It's day 5. It's given up already. So I've been on blood sugars today. And you just think, this is the reality of everybody with diabetes. And it doesn't just have to be type 1 either. It can be any flavour of diabetes, gestational diabetes even. The amount that you've got to really look after yourself because you're trying to grow a baby, the pressure is huge. And it's, again, like you say, it's not just diabetes either. It's all sorts of reasons. But the nice thing is people write their own note. So they pick their own postcard because that's what's spoken to them at clinic. So my worry, I guess, is that if I just give out postcards willy-nilly and say, oh, here you go, there's a box of 1,000, you crack on, you'll end up with people just giving it to their mates, or you'll end up with 1 or 2 members of staff liking 1 or 2 of the designs and then using them to write notes to patients that just say, oh, by the way, can you do this? And then it sort of lost the impact of the individual picked the card and wrote the note. And one of the funniest ones that I had to write it because this guy wasn't going to write it himself, but his note was, get up, get a job and stop being a knob. And I said, I can't put that. And he went, but yeah, he said, you should really. So I said, okay, but I'm writing this, and that's not usually the sort of thing that I'd put on somebody's postcard, but unless you were a particularly good friend of mine, then I might. But and anyway, I posted it to him, and he looked at it, and he was like, "Yeah, okay, come on." And it's about that way to give yourself a kick or a nudge, and it's about proving that you actually love yourself enough to have written it in the first place, and it's the power of you telling yourself, come on, and it's that. I'll shut up because Joanne wants to say something.
Very motivational. Thank you, Jo. And we're realizing the value of using this technique. So Joanna's waiting to come in. Do you get your full name, Joanne, always?
Oh, thank you. I'm another Jo, but thank you, you, Jo, for this presentation. It's been really powerful. And there's only me on the screen, but I have got 3 other team members in the office listening and a student nurse. So there's more people that this has been spread to. And not to sort of overrun what Leah said, really, but as a diabetes specialist nurse, this is so powerful. And I think, we really want to sort of harness this and definitely use it in our service. I've already emailed ABPN for the postcards. We'll gratefully receive and use as you've directed. I think the concept of a note to self is so powerful. Like you said, we've used note postcards in our service before, but as you've described, as sending it as a healthcare professional, and I think this is so different and so much more powerful. I think as Lee said, I want to link into our youth worker who's called Luke, to work with him and see if we can link into the adult team with the young adult service as well. I think yes, thanks so much for today. And is there the postcards in a format that I can send to a printer if we get funding, maybe?
What I've got, if you've got a local printer, then yes, I guess so. But the design and print company that helped us create all 10 of them and actually printed them for us, even our ideas, I think she probably has the copyright for those.
Okay.
In which case, I can send the details of that company, because she knows that if you're an NHS or, you know, healthcare provider, then basically you get them for like less than a penny each. So they're probably not going to be that expensive. The other thing,
the details, yeah.
The other thing is that because I'm at Diabetes UK next week at the conference, there's a paediatric and a young people's poster award, and basically I sponsor it because paediatrics didn't have a poster at DUK, and young people services never had a poster either. And I had a cardiac event at work. I didn't have a heart attack, but I had something that needed 2 stents. And because it was COVID, and because I've had diabetes for a long time now, basically the Oki health doctor, who was very lovely, and she said, "Jo, the thing is, if you do this again at work, and you die at work, your husband's never gonna forgive us." And because she was on speaker and Tony was next to me, and he went, "You're dead right, I wouldn't be impressed at all." She said, I want you to retire early. And I said, no, absolutely not. I've got way too much to do. And she said, "Seriously, Jo, you're too much of a risk, because you've now got heart disease and you've got these 2 stents, and basically when you're wearing a face mask, you can't breathe very well anyway." And everybody was wearing bloody face masks, weren't they? So I was finding it really a struggle to go up and down stairs at work, and they're saying, "Jo, take the lift." But I'm thinking, no, I've got too much weight, I need to do the stairs. So anyway, long story short, I retired early, and so I wondered what I could do that would still try and get good, because nurses are brilliant at ideas, but very often it's doctors and other healthcare professionals in our team who then take on and produce abstracts and publish stuff and all that sort of thing. And it used to get on my pod, because I think nurses are the cart horses of diabetes services and other long-term conditions within paediatric and adult care. We just do a whole load of stuff along with our admin colleagues, who sort of tidy up after us, don't they? And they do a whole load of stuff that we've got ideas about. And I wonder whether what we need to do is make sure that we get as much of this information out as possible. So I asked DUK if I could sponsor 2 poster abstracts, and they were very happy for me to do that. So each year I go back and I look at the ones that have been shortlisted, and then we give an award for 500 quid to whoever it is who wins the paediatric one, and whoever it is who wins the young people's one. So I'm there next week, and I'm going to take some postcards with me. So if anybody is part of a diabetes service and somebody in their team is turning up at DUK next week, come and find me, because I'm bound to be able to give you some postcards to take home with you. So at least it starts the ball rolling, so that you've got an opportunity to show them to the rest of the team where you work, and then say, look, this is the idea. Show them that video thing, which talks for a lot quicker than I do, and then see if you want to design your own ones. And you might even have a hospital charity that would help fund it, or a local business partnership in your sort of Department of Commerce, or whatever it is in the local council, or if it's a mental health charity that you can link with. There's a whole load of potential opportunities. It's just knowing who to ask
Thank you,
about
Jo.
helping you to fund it.
Thank you. Just before we bring Laura in, may we just say all hospitals have got patient endowment funds, and children's endowment funds are usually very healthy. So we should be asking for that money. It shouldn't be sitting there accruing interest for the health boards. We should be spending that money. Please come in, Laura.
Thank you, Jean. Thanks, Jo. That was really, really inspirational. Do you think your postcards would work for a more kind of simple health promotion message. So a child that needed to lose weight or stop vaping or you know, needs to be more active. Do you think it would work when you're not following up with the child again? So, for example, I support pre-assessment services. So sometimes it's an anaesthetist or a nurse that will see a child before their operation, but they might need to take a few steps to get a bit healthier, ready for that. I think it would still work.
Honest answer, I don't know. Because the good thing about the way that we did it, and we audited it to see, was that we knew that they were meant to be coming back to see us again. But if it was just a one-off postcard, I don't know. It rather depends what they've written on it themselves, doesn't it? And maybe you have a go and audit it.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks. We'll give it a go through one of the hospitals that I work with. Thank you.
That's a great question. Thank you, Laura, for asking it. Something occurred to me as well. I'm in education, the lead for a childfield nursing programme in Bangor University in North Wales. And when the students arrive all shiny faced and new, we ask them to write a letter to themselves. And then we give them that letter back at the end of third year. I think it would be good to get them to do a postcard and look at that at the end of year one, and maybe, so you're inspiring me too, Jo, to think a bit differently about things as well. So thank you for that. I just had one question as well, because we've still got a few minutes left. At the moment, psychology is an integral part of diabetes services, isn't it? I'd be really interested to know what psychology colleagues were saying about this way of, you know, communicating with young people.
We had a psychologist who, bless her, she only worked 1 day a week in our service, but she would assess and catch up with our young people regularly, especially the ones who needed a bit more input. And she was happy with it, thought it was a good idea. And when it works really well. And if you're somebody who has decided that you want to engage and pick a postcard, and then you've got involved in writing it and we've posted it, then you've got something to chat about when you come back next time. So some of the people who she saw regularly, they were involved in the postcard writing as well. And it's about keeping contact and the idea that we care about you even when you're not in clinic. And that's the thing that keeps the connection going, I think, and which is why I put From Clinic with Love, because it isn't just about seeing you in clinic and checking your HbA1c, and that's true for an awful lot of mental health and well-being issues for everybody. It doesn't have to be diabetes, it can be anything. So in theory, a psychologist could do something very similar with, even if they bought their own postcards or designed their own postcards. If you work in an educational environment, then chances are you've got an art department. Well, these guys know how to design stuff. So it's like you've got a gift waiting to be tapped to say, right, guys, I need 10 postcards, or I need 10 ideas. I need to, and people join in. If you sort of like, well, come on, we're going to do this. Let's have a go at this together. I'm rubbish at art, but I know somebody who's really good at this. So it could be a project. If you can think of another way of making it happen, then yeah, I'm good at ideas. I'm rubbish at tech, but I'm good at ideas. And one of the things that I've forgotten the name of the guy. Where's he gone? He made a comment. His photograph's vanished.
Lee had to go.
Yeah. Oh, has he? Right. Well, one of the things I used to do was go into schools and do diabetes clinics in schools, and then I did diabetes clinics in colleges, and I got the young people with diabetes to bring their friend, because the friend is the person who looks after them. It's not mums and dads anymore. It's friends who will then tell you what the person with diabetes actually gets up to, and they'll ask questions about diabetes and about, you know, getting drunk safely, about safe sex, about drinking normal Coca-Cola instead of Diet Coke, and about hypos and what to do if you went on holiday together at the end of college, or in you know, after your A levels or whatever, all those sorts of things. Friends ask questions, and this idea about peer education is really, really positive, because the friends of the young people with diabetes are the ones that tell you, as the diabetes nurse or the diabetes staff, what the person with diabetes really gets up to. And it's such a lovely way, and maybe it's because I'm diabetic as well, but it means you can share different ideas about, oh, funniest hypo I've ever had, or if that didn't work for you, try this. And you get people interacting with each other who've got diabetes and their friends to say, oh, well, we did this because this happened. And there's all sorts of opportunities, but it's about engaging, and it's, yeah, it helps you to carry the burden that you're carrying yourself, if you know that other people are sort of behind you at least a little bit, and that's never a bad thing.
Thank you, Jo. That's really sound. The things you're telling us are really sound. I can see people are really warming to what you're saying. So we have almost reached our time, but I would like to invite any last minute comments from anyone. Anybody wants to speak to Jo before we close our call. A massive thank you to you, Jo, and to Lynn sitting at the side of you. But is there anybody on the call now who does want to speak to Jo before she leaves? People are thanking you in the chat, Jo.
I've never seen people clapping like that before on the little thingy.
It's good, isn't it?
It's clever, isn't it? See technology.
Showing their appreciation, of course.
Well, you're all very welcome.
Thank you.
It's just an idea that you can plagiarise to your heart's
Yes.
content. Seriously, just
So,
nick it and upcycle it a bit.
Yeah, just thinking, Jo, whether you maybe want to write a small piece for the newsletter about Diabetes UK conference that you're going to, if there's anything new that's coming from that you want to tell us about. We'd be really interested to know. By the time we get to the end of the week, I can probably tell you who's going to, you know, which team has won the paediatric and the young people's prize. Wonderful.
And what I might then do is get whoever it is who's done their presentation to just write it themselves. Because another thing is, people don't publish stuff. And I'm not academic. I mean, I'm dyslexic and all sorts of things. And I'm not good at writing stuff. But if you get people to start publishing things, then they can be an author, and it becomes a bigger thing. So yeah, I'll ask them if they'll help me write something.
Thank you. I knew Fiona would come in at this point. Yes, Fiona, please.
Yes, Jo, what I'll do is I'll send you a template. We don't ask for anything too lengthy, 200, 300 words, and we'll get it into the newsletter and onto the website.
All right then. Yes, Mom.
Thank you so much. Thanks everybody for joining us this afternoon. I think you'll all agree we've had a fascinating time with Jo this afternoon, and more to learn. We've all learned something, Jo. Thank you for inspiring us.
You're very welcome. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Cheerio. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Jean, are you able to just send the address that we can send the stamped addressed envelope to?
Yes.
If you can send an email to me, it's Fiona at abpncommunications@gmail.com. I did put it in the
fine.
in the chat.
I'll copy it.
Yeah, it's in the chat.
Thank you so much.
And then I will advise you how to go about it, because Jo and I spoke before.
Perfect.
That's lovely. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for joining us, Sarah.
Bye.
Bye.
I haven't read any of these comments yet.
I'm going to,
Oh, it's nice for you to read them, isn't it?
yeah, I'm going to export it, give you a copy of them.
Okay, all right then.
Excellent.
But this
Thank
isn't,
you, Jo.
it's not rocket science, this, is it? It's just talking to people and caring enough to do something about it.
Exactly. But it's the how-to people want. You know, they don't want the sort of, you know, party line about anything. They want the real life valuable things, don't they? I'm going to stop recording now, Jo.
Okay.